All right. What is up, everyone, and welcome into the NFL Seekers podcast. I am your host today, Josh. I'm here with my guys Shane and Danny, and we got a fun episode coming up. We're going to be doing our top 20 running backs, but we're going to be doing a little two-part episode. This is just going to be 20 through 11. How are we doing, Shane? How are we doing, Dan?
Doing great. This has been fun. I'm excited to keep this going.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about these mid-round running backs for fantasy. I want to take full advantage of these beautiful mid-round running back value that we're going to be talking about today. I think all these 20 through 11 running backs are going to be honestly drafted way later than they should be. And I'm just going to be not drafting running backs the first two rounds. And I think I'm just going to wait and take advantage of the beautiful value that we'll talk about today in these running backs because these later round running backs are going to be really good in my opinion.
I have two things. First thing is I think Danny's blowing smoke stores. I think he's blowing.
I was going to say, he
Second,
feels like he's blowing a lot of smoke.
I'm excited to see how different we have. I feel like we'll have more similar rankings in the 10 through 1, but 20 to 11 right here, we could be all over the place.
Yeah, it is all over the place. And as I was doing these rankings, I was like, I think I'm just going to hammer in receivers the first two rounds because these later round running backs really are some great value, and we'll talk about them all later. But they all have really high upside, and I mean, I love these running backs that we're going to talk about today.
Sus. All I'm going to say is a lot of sus going around.
It's not smoking. It's not like that.
Smoke.
All right. So I mean, with that, should we go 3-3-3? Is that how you guys want to do it?
Like we'll have Store or Danny, do you want to start with your 20th and then we'll go Store's 20th, my 20th, and then just down the line?
Yep. So we'll do that. And before we get into the top 20, I did want to talk about three free agent running backs currently who could kind of affect and shape these rankings. I feel like one of these guys might get screwed over by either Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, or Leonard Fournette joining their team and kind of just being an annoying handcuff. Kind of scares me a little bit, especially for someone like Isaiah Pacheco, who isn't on any of our top 20, but he's my number 21 running back. And I wanted to mention him because I love Isaiah Pacheco, but I feel like he's probably going to be paired up with like Leonard Fournette or something. I just get the feeling that the Chiefs are going to add a veteran running back, and it kind of scares me, but I just love Pacheco. We saw the Chiefs lean on him in the Super Bowl when everything mattered, and he really came through for them, and it was just a boost for that team.
With what the rumors I've seen with Zeke, I don't know how accurate they are. Obviously, there's been talks of him going back to the Cowboys. That would suck because I'm so excited to see what Tony Pollard does by himself. And then also Zeke to the Jets I've seen. I would hate that. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't affect Breece Hall that much. I just want Breece Hall to have his own backfield and just be the guy back there. If they added Zeke, I'm sure it wouldn't change that much for Breece's production, but you never know. I mean, Zeke's still a good running back.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the board with these guys. I mean, depending on where they go. Shane, you threw out a fun one for Leonard Fournette. If anything happens with Joe Mixon, like him on the Bengals would be pretty exciting. I think he'd be a top maybe 15 running back if he went there. And yeah, Zeke's kind of all over the board. It's like where's he gonna end up? I mean, I've even heard rumors. A lot of the Chargers guys are talking about if Austin Eckler ends up doing a holdout or something, or if he ends up getting traded, that they would just sign Zeke because he's already familiar with the system, and he'd step in and be the RB1 in Los Angeles if anything were to happen with Eckler. So it's interesting, but yeah, there's a lot of guys that'll shake things up, who are free agents that will definitely affect these rankings later down the road that we'll definitely have to go over.
Yeah, these are definitely early rankings, and we'll get rankings right before the prime of fantasy football drafts start. We'll get our final rankings, and a lot will be updated, and a lot of news will pass since then or until then. But you guys ready to get into the top 20?
Yeah. This is just a way too early rankings, which is fun. We want to get it out there. We want to share our thoughts right now. After the draft, it's exciting. We're heading into fantasy season, but yeah, let's get on into it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing their underdog drafts and their best ball drafts, so it's not too early to get some insight on some of these players. But sure, I will get into my number 20 running back, and that is Houston Texans second-year running back Dameon Pierce. He's being drafted the same place as he was last year, which kind of makes no sense to me. I mean, there was a lot more question marks last year. around him and the Texans, and I'm pretty confident that the Texans will be scoring more with Stroud coming in. They added Singletary, but they gave him no money at all, which shows they kind of plan on Pierce being the main guy. And Stroud doesn't really run the ball too often, so I like that because that kind of means when the pass rush gets there, he might just dump it off to Pierce more often. So he might have a higher receiving upside than last year. So I don't mind Dameon Pierce. I don't really know if I'm low or high on him, but I like Dameon Pierce overall.
Does how do you feel with Devin Singletary probably behind him?
They didn't really pay him anything at all. I actually like that because he's Devin Singletary. So if that's the guy that they bring in, then that kind of just shows me that they like Dameon Pierce as their future guy.
Yeah, I don't really think Devin Singletary will affect it. I mean, he kind of could be a third down guy and get a couple of PPR receptions, which would be annoying. But I think Dameon Pierce is their dude, and I'm excited to see him paired up with CJ Stroud. That'll be a fun backfield right there.
Sure. Let's hear your number 20, Josh.
So my number 20, and I hate to put him this low, I really do, but it's always so frustrating every year with him. I mean, he could be a top 5 running back, but it's Aaron Jones. I feel like it's pretty low
At 20.
but I'm so sick of AJ Dillon and a shared backfield with him that I really just don't even want to, draft him. I want to stay. I have to have him on my top 20, but I don't even want, I want somebody else to have to deal with the headache of AJ Dillon taking all of his touches, taking all the goal line touches. Cause I mean, he's such a good running back, but they're just such a running back by committee system. And, he could end up being top 10 running back easy, but I don't want to have to deal with the headache of his shared backfield. So that's why I'm putting him here at 20.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm honestly personally not too worried about AJ Dillon. I feel like last year they kind of just phased him out at the end of the year because they figured out Aaron Jones is just simply a better player and just give him the ball more, and it worked. Aaron Jones is pretty safe to me this year. I don't mind him.
What you just said about AJ Dillon getting phased out, that's exactly what I was going to say when I got to Aaron Jones. Because that's what it seemed like happened to him last year. But
I mean, I don't know. It's just goal line touches. It's just like when you really need him, it just seems like there's always something in his way. That's kind of how I feel.
There's a lot of uncertainty with Jordan Love coming in.
But
we don't even know how much Jordan Love's going to throw to him, and a lot of his production was from receiving. So there is uncertainty and unknown. But yeah, I understand.
Like with Aaron Jones, he's a guy that can break out for a 30-point game, but then the next week have 3 points. And it frustrates me. I feel like there's no consistency. I feel like he always ends up high because he does have those superstar games where he gets 10 receptions and scores, 2-3 touchdowns. But then there's those games where he's just like a 5-point player. And it's just I've had him consistently. I've traded for him actually. I think past 2-3 years, I've somehow always had him on my team. I always want to stay away from him, but I always get him, and he's a stud some games. But it's just the inconsistencies for me that I have him so low. I mean, it's probably not fair to Aaron Jones. It's not his fault. He's a great player, but it's just it's the way the Packers head coaches, how they call their plays, how they feature other running backs, and just the boomer bust for him.
And another point that you didn't even bring up is the Packers really did bring in a lot of weapons this year. They brought in 2 really good tight ends, a good deep threat receiver. So there could be a little bit less touches to go around. So I get that. But let's hear your number 20, Shane.
My number 20. So I like this guy. I feel like I'm gonna have him moved up come August when we're doing our redraft draft. But I got J.K. Dobbins at 20.
Okay.
Last year he only played 8 games. He averaged 5.7 yards a rush, which is solid. But downside, he doesn't get much receiving, and also Lamar Jackson's going to take some rushes away from him. But last year, when we saw him, even when he actually played, he was basically playing on one leg. I kind of was surprised he was even playing. But on the bright side, they added no one. They've made no changes to their backfield for the running backs. It's still J.K. Dobbins, and then Gus Edwards is behind him, but Gus Edwards is very clearly behind him. So he's a clear guy and a good offense.
Can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
He's not even the best running back on his team, Shane.
No, I love Dobbins this year. I like that a lot. I think he's going to be.
Dude, Yeah, Lamar Jackson. That's the downside. That's why I am at 20 right now. That's the scary thing.
No, I think Lamar Jackson will help him actually this year because it's J.K.
I-
Dobbins. It's not like he's a prolific runner. So Lamar Jackson's going to help J.K. Dobbins a lot to kind of key people away from J.K. Dobbins, and he can do his thing. But yeah, I think that's why it was good at the end of the year last year. But
I would
Alright.
love to see him on a different team, just because I feel like he could be a Dameon Pierce. Like he could be 1,000-yard rusher and a 10+ touchdown guy if he was in a different system. Like I feel like he has the potential to be so good. But
He's such a good running back.
is.
It's just he's basically Lamar Jackson's shadow, if I'm using that phrase right.
yeah, no, 100%.
he was quite clearly literally running on one leg last year. So yeah, it's interesting. It'll be fun to see him healthy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with my number 19 running back then. And that is the new Panthers running back, Miles Sanders. They're going to have a run first offense with a great offensive line. And there aren't really any running backs behind him that scare me. So like what's not to like with Miles Sanders? He was really a solid player last year in fantasy. Good player for the Eagles behind a good offensive line. He took advantage of a good situation last year too. So I think Miles Sanders is going to be a pretty underrated option in fantasy this year.
No, 100%. I'm super excited about Miles Sanders. I mean, he had one of the most underrated fantasy seasons last year. The dude was an absolute stud. He ran for like it was like the most quiet, like
It's because
1,300 yards.
he was on the
season of
same
all
team as
time.
Jalen Hurts, Devontae
And-
Smith, and AJ Brown, who took all the. Yeah, he was.
And he was amazing.
so
He was
good last
amazing.
year.
He was 1,300 yards rushing. Production too. I'm not
No.
off the top of my head. I don't know how many touchdowns he scored, but he was a fantastic running back last year in a crowded offense. So I absolutely love Miles Sanders this year. I think he's going to be a stud. Quite frankly, I think you have him too low, Dan, to be honest. But that's a safe spot to put him. But I think he could easily. I think he'll be 1,000-yard guy for sure. And the Panthers, they love to feature their running backs. And I think he'll get plenty of touches. So I'm super excited about Miles Sanders.
Yeah. Let's hear your number 19 then.
So my number 19 is going to be a Ramondre Stevenson, which
Whoa.
also could be too.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yo. Wow.
That is lower than you'll see him anywhere.
You are.
I know. There's a
ripping.
lot of
You
running
are-
backs this year that I love.
You are out of your mind right now, Josh Stores.
Wow.
You know what? I'm back-to-back fantasy champion, boy.
Oh, you don't give me that.
Back-to-back. You listen to me because I know what's up.
You were the luckiest. All right.
And the only reason I have him so low is just because I don't trust the Patriots offense. I don't. They're different every year. They're weird. There's no one really on the Patriots that I love. I mean, he was fantastic. Dan picked him up last year, actually traded for him in a trade that I thought he got.
Can I say
finessed.
something?
Yeah.
I traded for him last year, and my trade got vetoed. So I was supposed to have him last year. Anyways, go on.
Dan was supposed to have him. Dan was the beneficiary of him. And I was like, why is this dude trading Najee Harris like week 2 for Ramondre Stevenson? And you know what?
Dan knew.
Made me look like an idiot. I didn't know what I was talking about. Dan knew something. But I mean, he was an absolute stud last year. The only reason, there's just like gut feelings I have, and like the Patriots offense is just one that I don't really love to be a part of. And it's no particular reason. It's just more of gut feeling. And so that's why I have Ramondre so low, even though he was like, what he finished like top 10. He was top.
He finishes the RB7 last year, and he didn't even start the season as a starter. He started the season as a backup rookie, but
he was a stud, and he deserves to be. It's just a gut feeling. It's just I don't trust the Patriots offense. I don't know. It's just the inconsistencies with the offensive play calling. I trust the Patriots defense every year. That's something I trust, but their offense is always, it's like who knows who's gonna be the guy putting up production for them. But I know, hate on me all you want. It's just a gut feeling.
yeah, we'll see if you still feel this way coming closer to the draft season. But let's hear your number 19, Shane. We'll talk about Ramondre a little bit later in a more positive light.
Exactly. My number 19 guy is Mr. Miles Sanders.
Okay.
Wow.
Not much more else to say. I mean, it's exciting that he's on a new team. It feels like he's going to have, he's going to have new opportunity, but a new team doesn't always mean better. I mean, he's on a worse team now. That's one thing. So that's that's a little scary. But he's the clear guy. They wanted him, they got him. So they're going to use him. I'm sure Bryce Young is gonna rely on him to help him out. So I think Miles Sanders. I also think, just like J.K. Dobbins, I think Miles Sanders is going to move up my rankings come August too.
For sure.
Yeah,
I
he's
think
going to be
he'll
underdrafted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's going to be underdrafted wherever he's getting drafted. He's going to be a steal, and that Panthers offense really is so run focused and run heavy, and they were a really good run game last year, and they've got a better coaching staff and better offensive line this year. So
well, and even look what after CMC left, he wasn't great, but Deonta Foreman had some great games.
yeah,
So did Chuba Hubbard, and so now with Miles Sanders as the clear number one guy, I think he has a legit shot of finishing as top 12.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that. I have him higher than you guys do. Can I just ask a quick question? Did you guys didn't put Alvin Kamara, right? Just because of the uncertainties, he's probably not going to pay. Okay, yeah, same. I didn't either. Like I
did
kind of want to talk about him, but like,
yeah. Well, on that topic, I did put a note on Kamara. That offense is going to be much better this year, like a really pretty good offense. And his current ADP is the running back 30 in PPR, the running back 30, which is just comical. Obviously, the suspension is scary. Keep an eye on it. We didn't put him in here. We're keeping an eye on the situation. There's a possibility there's no suspension. There's a possibility it's a full season. We don't know. So little
Did
scary.
you look to see what Jamal Williams ADP is right now?
Oof.
I wonder where Jamal Williams is going right now.
Man, the running back they just drafted could be a stud too. Kendre Miller should have
Yeah.
been a changer.
Especially dynasty.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention his name because like we're not purposely leaving him out. It's just all of the suspension stuff is just in the air right now, so it's not really worth even drafting him just because he might not even play this season. So
yeah, a lot of uncertainty for the current running back 30, which is crazy. But
yeah.
I'll go with my number 18 running back, and that is someone that Josh covered at 20, and that is Aaron Jones for the Packers. I personally really like Jordan Love a lot. I've liked him a lot since Utah State, and I understand there's a lot of unknown, but I do think that there will be a decent floor with Aaron Jones because, like I said, they did phase out A.J. Dillon last year, and I'm not really nervous about A.J. Dillon at all. I'm not targeting him in fantasy in any league ever, but I actually just barely dropped him in my dynasty league, and I'm happy about it. But yeah, I like Aaron Jones this year. I think his receiving upside is going to be a little scary, but I think he's going to be a decent option, and RB18 is fine for me.
Yeah, that's a safe spot to put him. I mean, realistically, he could be as high as probably 12, but it's just a little uncertainty to where I just don't feel safe, and I feel like there's a lot more safer players, to come up. So yeah, this is like I think like the 18 to 20 is like a very safe floor for him. But I mean, he'll probably end up honestly going earlier.
Let's get into your 18.
So my number 18 was covered with your number 20, so it's going to be Mr. Dameon Pierce. I'm super excited. I think the Texans know that they're a better team when they handed the ball off to him. It was kind of weird. His fantasy production was inconsistent last season. But I mean, he's ultra productive. He doesn't have a lot of miles on the tire. And I think the offense is going to be high powered, a lot better with CJ Stroud. And I think they're going to be in a lot more, scoring situations. And I think he can be a guy that's, there's no reason he couldn't be the touchdown leader. I mean, he's such a physical guy. And, and one of the best stats for running back is, forced missed tackles. And there was a game where he had like 12, he like, it's like week 3 and he was like, he was like 12. He had like 12 in 1 week and it was just ridiculous. And I mean, his skill set could easily be, like that of like a Nick Chubb to me. So I think he's in a better offense this year. I think he's going to improve. And this is a very safe floor that I'd feel taking it. But I mean, towards the end of the season, he was very disappointing. I think you had him, Shane. I think you traded for him and he was very disappointing, but I think he's set up for a bounce back. And I think the Texans know that they're a better team when he's getting touches.
I actually surprisingly, I didn't forget about him. I just maybe because I personally got burned by him towards the end of last year. I don't have Dameon Pierce in my top 20. That will probably change. I'm just looking at his carries. especially middle of the season. I mean, he started out 22 carries, 18 carries, then 27 carries, 20 carries, 26 carries, and then it started to fall off. 14 carries, 15 carries, 11 carries. I don't know what that was. Granted, I think he was dealing with like a foot or ankle injury, so maybe that was part of it. But now since we've been talking about him, I definitely feel like I need to have Dameon Pierce in my top 20.
Yeah, I like what you said, Josh. I think D'Amico Ryan's coming in. He's kind of bring in that just dog mentality and that smash mouth mentality, and they're gonna run it a lot more. And with Stroud coming in and those offensive pieces, there's gonna be a lot more touchdowns coming around in that offense and a lot more goal line opportunities. So Pierce is gonna be good.
Yeah, 100%. I'm excited. He's definitely a guy I want to be targeting as like my RB2, or flex. Wherever you get him. If you go running back heavy and we're able to get him as like a flex player, that would be a dream scenario if you went like 3 running backs and you were able to get him as your third, your third round pick.
If you're
But yeah,
doing any
I'm very
drafts, an
excited.
underdog right now, he is available in like the 6th round, so you definitely could get him as a flex. So go out and get him right now.
100%. All right, Shane, who's number 18?
So my 18 and my 17 guy, I ranked them here because I felt like I had to have them in the top 20. But personally, I don't like them whatsoever. But if they stay where they're at, they'll. I mean, I guess it makes more sense. So my 18 guy is Dalvin Cook. There's so many. I mean, he's such a great running back, but there's just so many rumors going around. Like, are they going to cut him? Are they going to keep him? Are they going to trade him? Like, what's going to happen with him? There's so much uncertainty, and by September 10th, once this new season kicks off, he's going to be 28 years old. That's getting old for a running back. So that too is scary. And then if he stays on the Vikings too, I think they're gonna Alexander Madison's gonna be their guy. Didn't they just pay him a new contract too?
Yeah, they gave him it wasn't a big contract. It's like a 2-year, $6 million or something like that,
Yeah,
which is good money for an
that's
RB2 on a team. So I mean, it is substantial.
yeah. So I think that's
but
saying something. They like Alexander Madison. They wanted to keep him around. I just felt like I couldn't not have Dalvin Cook in my top 20. So this is where I put him.
yeah, he was definitely disappointing last year for sure. But I mean, when he does get touches, he is ultra productive and he is a great running back. I have him a little bit higher on my list. But yeah, I get what you're saying. He's kind of in the twilight years of his career. He's probably due for a regression, and he's an injury prone guy. He's been injured off and on throughout his whole career. And I think the Vikings probably do want to get rid of him. This is probably their last chance with him to have any trade value, especially for a guy who's 28. And with the running back position, it's a young man's position, so they're coming in and out fast. But yeah, I think that's a safe safe floor for Dalvin Cook as running back 18. He could definitely be a top 5 running back, depending on how the Vikings feature him and if he stays healthy.
If he's any team's guy, yeah, he could be a top 10 easily, probably even top 5. But just
you guys are gonna have to hear me out, man, because he's not in my top 25.
Whoa.
He's off my draft board. I'm gonna be completely ignoring Dalvin Cook in every draft this year. I swear on everything, no matter where he is, I'm not drafting Dalvin Cook. The only situation I would consider even adding him on my roster is if he was on the Buffalo Bills. That's the only football team I would roster Dalvin Cook. I will take Alexander Madison behind Dalvin Cook in every single draft I can. Every single draft Dalvin Cook gets drafted before Alexander Madison, I'll be taking Alexander Madison whenever I can right after, because I want the Vikings running back. I don't want a Dolphins running back that's in a share with 5 other running backs. I want the Vikings running back, and that's going to be Alexander Madison. And no situation that I see Dalvin Cook going to with his age and injury situations lately, I'm not drafting at all, unless he's a Bill, maybe.
So you're writing him off though from the Vikings. You don't think he'll be there?
He's not going to be a Viking for sure. If he is, then
that's how I feel about him. But I felt like that's why. I mean, 18. I felt like I just still had to have him, but
That's crazy. I'm sorry, but
I agree with Dan. I agree with you. I just felt like I had to have him still up there because he's still, maybe it's just the name power in Dalvin Cook. That's why I felt like I had to have him in my top 20. But I agree with you, Dan.
And if he touches the ball, he's a stud. And it depends. Yeah, it does depend on the system. I think if he does stay in Minnesota, and if he stays healthy, I think he's a top 15 running back. I'll be honest. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but I mean,
He
it's
stayed
probably.
in.
I mean, I think he's got a year or two left in the tank before he comes completely irrelevant. But yeah, I mean, he is scary because it's just all dependent on health and situation. If you think he's going to the Dolphins, then yeah, I would write him out of the top 20. I don't want a running back that is going to share touches with 5 other running backs. I don't want anything to do with the Dolphins running backs. It's a disaster, and you don't even look at that. But yeah, I see your point, and if you're writing him off from being on the Vikings, which is totally fair, because I mean it kind of does seem like he won't be on the team. Then yeah, I get that. I for sure get that.
Yeah, if he's a Viking, I'll respect it and I'll take him because, like I said, I do want a Vikings running back. I want a Vikings running back this year. I think they'll be good. I just don't think it'll be Dalvin Cook by the time the season starts.
Yeah, fair enough.
I will get into my number 17 running back, and it's also someone that I'm lower on the consensus for sure, and it's a younger guy, Kenneth Walker. The Charbonnet edition is just heartbreaking for fantasy. Charbonnet is a really good football player. He could be a bell cow running back for most teams, and Walker is a talented and explosive player. He's still going to be dynamic and fun like he was last year. He broke runs. He had crazy elusiveness and spin moves. He's a fun watch. But for fantasy, I'm pretty scared. The Seahawks are kind of stubborn in their ways. Like, I don't think they're going to be throwing to Kenneth Walker that much out of the backfield. And you just can't ignore what the Seahawks did in the draft, man. It really hurts. Charbonnet is
That's it.
Solid running back.
Just because what they did in the draft. I mean, Kenneth Walker, I would have him in my top 10 if it weren't for Charbonnet.
100%.
It sucks.
It's so disappointing. It breaks my heart what they did. Oh, and it hurts because Kenneth Walker is such a stud. And I still have him. Shockingly, I still think he's going to be a productive running back. I have him. You'll see here in a second, but he's such a stud. He's such a good running back. You want the ball in his hands. It just makes you so scared that they added such a good running back. I mean, Zach Charbonnet should be a running back one on a team. I mean, these are two legit running back ones, and the committee does just scare me. It's terrifying. I really don't want anything to do with it. I think he's a good enough player to definitely be in the top 20. But yeah, it's just like I don't want a running back that. I mean, and like Zach Charbonnet is almost like a very similar. They didn't even draft a guy to complement Kenneth Walker. I mean, Zach Charbonnet is a bell cow. Kenneth Walker is a bell cow. I could have seen if they drafted like a smaller guy, like a Jahmyr Gibbs, that would have made sense, even though he was drafted so high, but like he would have complemented Kenneth Walker perfectly, a guy with a lot of receiving upside, but such a weird, crowded backfield with those two. And I don't love it, but I mean, he's the player himself has to be on the top 20. The situation is what kills it.
Yep. Very dynamic and fun player, just unfortunate situation. Let's hear your number 17.
So my number 17 is going to be Mr. Javonte Williams.
Okay.
The Dan's dude. And I mean, this guy is, this guy's got upside written all over him. He definitely has a chance to be one of the better NFL running backs. Yeah, he's still very unproven. I mean, but Javonte Williams excites me because he's such a great receiver too. He's not just a runner. He's a fantastic receiver. But Denver's offense scares me a little bit, but excites me a little bit because, I mean, every year that Sean Payton was the coach, they had top 10 running backs all day long. I mean, he was ultra productive with Mark Ingram and Mr. Alvin Kamara. So I think they'll feature Javonte Williams a lot. I think he'll be a centerpiece. Hopefully he stays healthy. Could be a little low. He definitely could be a top 10 running back in my opinion, but he's just a little unproven, and I'd like to see a little bit more from him. But I think this is a safe floor for him.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have Javonte Williams in my top 20.
Dan's not happy. He's not happy.
So scary with that injury. I mean, I guess you can make the same argument. I have Breece Hall in my top 20, but they brought in Samaje Perine. Russell Wilson is just weird, man. I don't know. I just maybe that'll change if he's like a full go come training camp. Yeah, I'll probably move him in my top 20. But it's just we just don't really know right now.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Thank you, Josh, for putting Javonte in your top 20. I didn't think he would be there, so thank you. I appreciate it. What exactly is the difference between Javonte and Breece Hall? Like, good players. They were drafted in the same spot, injured around the same time. I get Breece Hall's ACL tear was a little bit cleaner, but like they brought in Abadakanda. out of Pitt, and they still have Michael Carter. I'd get the Broncos brought in P Ryan, but that about evens out. Like similar situations, similar talents. I don't know why Brees Hall's ADP is so much higher. So I'm taking Javonte.
Samaje will take more away from Javonte than a bet, whatever, however you say the Pitt's running back's last name, and
I agree with that. Yeah,
take away from Brees Hall.
I agree with that.
That's fair.
Yeah. I agree. I think Samaje is actually a very lethal PPR guy, and I'd like to see the ball in his hands a lot because that dude's a stud. Samaje Perine was my handcuff with Joe Mixon last year, and I was wanting Joe Mixon to be injured every game because Samaje Perine would put up 30 points. It was unreal. The dude was fantastic when he had the ball in his hands. But Javonte Williams, he's still young. That injury does scare me. Russell Wilson is just weird, you know. Who knows? Weird. Who knows if he'll have a bounce back season? But as long as they feature him, which I think they will, I think they'd be dumb not to because he really is their best offensive weapon. You could argue him and Jerry Jeudy, but I would rather have the ball, you know, in Javonte Williams' hand 20 plus times a game. So I think if they're smart, he's top 15 running back all day long. If the Broncos just feature their best player on offense, which he is still unproven, but when he did play, he was their best player, in my opinion. So that's why I have him in my top 20.
Yeah, I think they'll ease him into things. But like you said, once he gets rolling, I think Sean Payton will really get him involved and will really help that Broncos offense flourish. They'll run the offense through Javonte. And if he isn't good and that run game isn't good, then the Broncos are going to be a terrible team. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's hear your 17, Shane.
Okay, my 17, I mentioned it when I was talking about Dalvin Cook. I don't really like him. But I have Joe Mixon at 17. Kind of the same situation. We don't know if he's going to be on the Bengals. We don't really know. Is he going to be suspended with the legal stuff going on? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to cut him? There's a lot of question marks in the air with him. Kind of like just like Dalvin Cook. And then the same thing. I felt like he just kind of had to be in my top 20 because of the name. And if he stays on the Bengals and with Samaje Perine gone, because the only thing that's behind him now, only player behind him now is that rookie Chase Brown. So that's if come week 1, Joe Mixon is their guy, he's top 10 running back. There's just so many question marks right now around him.
Yeah, I like Joe Mixon. Oh, you go on, Dan.
No, you go.
Okay. Yeah, so Joe Mixon, just because of the situation he's in, it's kind of like a very running back friendly situation like Austin Eckler, where he just is going to get a lot of touches, you know? And so that's the thing with me is he is, you know, I think I have him a little bit higher just because he does as long as there's no suspension or anything, he's going to be their dude, and he's going to get, you know, he wasn't very productive with his touches, but he got enough touches to be productive. Is kind of how it was last year. I mean, he had that one game where he scored 5 touchdowns, which was awesome. I was the beneficiary of that in our league. It was fantastic. I don't remember who I was playing, but it was awesome. When he dropped that 55-point game and scored 5 touchdowns, I kept checking my phone. I'm like, holy shit, he scored again. But
he's getting older too. He's going to be 27 come week 1. That's
as long as he's their RB1. But as long as he's going to be top 12, I'd say, is floor. As long as he's RB1, no suspension issues, lock him in his top 12 for me.
Yeah, that's a good transition into my number 16 running back then, because it is Joe Mixon. It's crazy to me that he's the consensus running back 19 right now in PPR leagues. It's just incredible value for Joe Mixon. I'm going to be stealing him in every draft I can. Think about it, like he's been a really good fantasy player the last few years. He was great last year, great. He's been league winning in some leagues the last 2 years. So, I mean, their backup as a rookie, like you said, Chase Brown, doesn't scare me. And if Mixon's traded, I think he'll likely still be like a lead back and a more featured back than Dalvin Cook will be if he's traded, if that makes sense. Like, I think Joe Mixon will be traded for more of an investment for a team that gets him, you know what I mean? So I like Joe Mixon's outlook no matter what this year. And he's being slept on because of the trade rumors and the gun situation in Cincinnati, but nothing's going to happen. He's going to be fine. I'm sure he's going to be a top 20 running back. So
yeah, he's just such a well-rounded running back. Like, he just does everything good. Like, you can put him on the field because he's a good pass protector. He's a good receiver. He's a good runner. So he's a good investment. He's safe. As long as there's no suspension, he stays healthy. I mean, they're invested. I mean, with Chase Brown, it's kind of bold, that's their RB2. He's just, like, was he 4th or 5th round or 6th round or something, draft pick. So obviously I think they feel comfortable with Joe Mixon touching the ball 20 plus times a game, as long as the suspension. I mean, maybe Zeke or Leonard Fournette end up there, like we talked about, and then that changes everything. But yeah, as long as they think he's good to go and he's ready to roll, I mean, he's a steal at his consensus pick right now for sure, Dan.
Love that. Let's hear your number 16 running back, Josh.
So we've already talked about him, but it's Kenneth Walker, and it's probably high for him. He's just such a good player, and it just hurts me what they did to him. I love the player. I hate the system, and what they put him in, but as long as he's touching the ball, he can be one of the best running backs in the NFL. I truly picture him as a Nick Chubb. Like, he runs the ball like Nick Chubb to me. He's just an ultimate bruiser. He can get in the end zone. He can break an 80-yard run at any given moment. And I would think Seattle, even with drafting Zach Charbonnet, that they'd be stupid to take the ball out of Kenneth Walker's hands. And I would hope that he's the goal line back and that he's getting 15 plus touches a game. And as long as he's getting 15 touches a game, I think he's worthy of, top 16 running back pick.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker's good talent. I understand betting on his incredible athleticism. So
yeah, but yeah, not much more to say about him. But yeah, Shane, who's your 16?
My 16 is James Conner. Now, he is on probably what's going to be one of the worst teams, maybe even the worst team in the NFL next year. But he still had, in 13 games played, he had 7 touchdowns and 782 rushing yards, which isn't great, but they didn't add anyone behind him. It's still him. It's just him. And then they have Keontae Ingram behind him, which isn't that terrifying. And with especially, even when Kyler Murray's back, I think that could even help him. He's just a better quarterback. But without Kyler Murray, with Colt McCoy starting those first couple weeks or however many weeks it may be, that just makes me like James Conner even more, because you won't have Kyler Murray there taking away rushes. So, and I like James Conner. He's a good. Seems like they always get him down to the 1 yard line, and he'll punch it in, sort of like a poor man's Jamal Williams.
Yeah, they're another team that didn't bring in any running backs. So I really like James Conner, and he's getting drafted way too late. He's incredible value this year. So go steal James Conner in your leagues for sure.
Totally.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll be honest, I kind of forgot about James Conner. He didn't make my top 20. He probably should have. The dude's he's a touchdown machine. Very in health and everything, and yeah, he does catch passes. He's kind of he's a kind of an all around, well-rounded guy. And sorry, James Conner, I didn't put you on my top 20. Kind of blanked you, but
yeah, James Conner's definitely being slept on. I'll get into my number 15 running back, and that is Broncos running back Javonte Williams, who we've been talking about a lot about lately. But man, I just think week 1 last season against the Seahawks, they were giving him the ball every play. It was my favorite game to watch ever as a Broncos fan, because they were literally just giving Javonte Williams the ball every play, every single play. They were throwing him screens, and he was getting a first down every play. And he really is a dynamic, just powerful running back. And I really hope he's healthy, because he's electric. And you could say this is high, but I've got him 1 spot behind Breece Hall, and I have them pretty much in the same tier. I understand Breece Hall is in a little bit better of a situation and a little bit better of an offense. I understand that, but I don't know, man. I just have a feeling that Javonte Williams won't be too far off from Breece Hall this year, if he's really going to be healthy week 1.
Yeah, I kind of spoke my piece about Javonte Williams. I think that's definitely, I think that's a good range for him, kind of at where the highest you should draft him, and then, kind of the lowest be like between 17 and 20. But yeah, get him on your teams. All the upsides there. If you could get him as an RB2, I think you'd be, ecstatic, to have Javonte as a complement to, if you were to get, a Saquon Barkley or something like that, or even a Josh Jacobs, that'd be a great duo.
Yeah, you just brought up another good point. Like, he's being drafted as the RB28 right now. So where you can get him compared to where you can get some of these other running backs, like you don't have to draft him anywhere near 15, you know what I mean? But you can get a pretty good return from where you're drafting him right now. So I just think it's tremendous value.
100%. And then Should I get in, Shane? Do you want to say anything about Javonte, or should I get into my number 15?
I was going to say something and I forgot. So let's hear your 15.
All right, so my number 15 is Mr. Dalvin Cook. We kind of already spoke on him. As long as he's healthy and not on the Dolphins, I'll say, I think this would be a good spot to draft him. Dalvin Cook is an ultra productive running back when he actually has the ball in his hands. He's a guy that kind of reminds me, he's a mixture. He's a little bit more finesse than bulldozer, than like a Kenneth Walker. But anytime he's getting 20 touches a game, he's usually breaking. Seems like anywhere from like a 30 to 50-yard touchdown. So he's definitely a guy with tremendous upside. He is entering the twilight years of his career, so I get that. I might be a little high on him, I might be a little low on him. We'll see, but I definitely wouldn't mind Dalvin Cook. Right at this spot, I feel safe as long bearing health and everything and team, obviously. But if he's a Vikings running back and he's healthy, give me Dalvin Cook all day long.
Yeah, like you said, like if he's a Viking, as of right now he's a Viking, and that's a good place to draft him. If he's actually going to be a Viking, then that's fine. I understand that.
Yes, sir.
All right, so my 15, we've already talked about him, but I have Aaron Jones. He's confusing. We got AJ Dillon back there, even though it seems like they're kind of phasing him out. But last year, Aaron Jones finished 10th amongst all running backs with 1,121 rushing yards, which is nice to see because it seems like a lot of his fantasy value, I mean, it does, but a lot of his fantasy value comes from the passing game. He did only have 2 rushing touchdowns, which is kind of sucks. But then he had 5 receiving touchdowns, which is nice for fantasy football. He had 72 targets, which turned into 59 receptions. That's the kind of running. If you had Aaron Jones as your running back too, with those same kind of numbers, I mean, that is an awesome running back two to have. Seriously. So yeah, just with the receiving game that he has, and it seems like AJ Dillon's being phased out. I think Jordan Love, we don't know what Jordan Love's going to do, but there's a good chance he relies on it. Aaron Jones, he's a vet. He's been around him. Obviously, they know each other. They've been around together for a couple of years. But the only other thing, he's 28. He's going to be 29 towards the end of this season. That's old, same as Dalvin Cook. So I think this very well could be the last year we see a big performance from Aaron Jones.
Yeah, he definitely did look the part last year, like you said. He was a pretty good running back. He's definitely in his prime because he's been pretty good the last few years. He's just a good dynamic player. The only question mark really is how much will Jordan Love throw to him, because he got a lot of like receiving touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers. He was one of their better receivers with Aaron Rodgers. So it's definitely going to be a different offense.
He was a stud when he went and lined out and the slot and everything. Like, he's such a good running back, and I don't think he's got too many miles on him. I think he's honestly fine. Career wise, kind of feel like guys with Dalvin Cook who've been injured a lot and beat up, and guys have gotten 300 plus touches a year. Aaron Jones has never really been that guy. But I would just love if he was just set it and forget it. We're giving Aaron Jones 15 to 20 touches a game, because he would be a top 10 running back. Their system scares me, and that's why I have him so low. I mean, running back, I don't, it's not like my thought, like my true feelings of him. It's just the system that, LaFleur has run, and the committee. I just feel like I've kind of been burned by Aaron Jones a lot. I've started him a lot of games over the past couple of years, because it just somehow always seem to have him midseason, and I get so frustrated with the Packers offense. But it's going to be a different offense this year with Jordan Love, and I hope they rely on a guy like Aaron Jones more.
For sure.
And then coming in at my number 14 running back is going to be the new Detroit Lions running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. Interesting player, man. He's a good receiving back. He's a good player. David Montgomery is going to be very frustrating for Gibbs owners in fantasy. I promise you that. I'll tell you that right now. David Montgomery is going to get the ball a lot, and he's probably going to be their starting running back and goal line running back. So he's going to be frustrating for Gibbs owners, but I understand Gibbs is being really drafted really high, almost too rich for me. I don't think I'll really have too many shares of Gibbs in fantasy, but he's going to break some explosive plays like Swift did. He's going to have that Swift role, and he'll probably be pretty productive in that Swift role, but he, getting drafted 12th overall in the NFL draft, he probably will get overdrafted in fantasy drafts just because of the height.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely love Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he's a stud. He's definitely drafted way too high in the NFL draft. And for that reason, that's why I think he's going to have more fantasy production, is because these guys can't, they'd look like fools if he's not getting at least. I think safely you have to give him 10 to 12 touches a game. And I think he'll line up in the slot, and I think they'll have a lot of fun, end arounds and screens and stuff to him, which I think he'll be ultra productive. But yeah, you're gonna get around the 1 yard line, and Shane knows this with the DeAndre Swift all too well. They're gonna be it's gonna be David Montgomery. That's who they're gonna be. Dan Campbell is gonna pound the rock, and Jahmyr Gibbs is not that running back at the 1 yard line. It's gonna be David Montgomery. That's why they signed him. It's kind of weird they just didn't re-sign Jamal Williams. I felt like he fit that culture so well, and he scored 18 touchdowns, and he was the leading. I don't understand why they shifted. I mean, I get it. I think David Montgomery is probably a better, well-rounded running back, but Jamal Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs would have been an awesome duo. So I don't really understand that. I don't understand their whole philosophy of drafting Gibbs at 12 and trading Swift. It was so weird. Like, no one understands it, but they'll look like fools if Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't look good. They have to give him touches.
I mean, I feel like Gibbs, if he does have a good season, it'll be in the back half of the season. I think he'll definitely start out slow with obviously David Montgomery. He'll be their guy, at least to start. But then it's like the Lions have some curse, like Kerryon Johnson. He didn't work out. DeAndre Swift, he didn't work out. Jahmyr Gibbs, is he going to work out? I guess we'll see. Where he was drafted, he better work out, so.
Oh yeah. I mean, he has to be good. They have to give him touches. And that's why this year, so my number 14 ranking is Jahmyr Gibbs too. So we agree on that, Dan.
Wow.
So, but yeah, and it's all they have no choice. They would look completely stupid spending their first round draft pick on a running back and not having him be one of the focal points of that offense. And you saw him in that war room. You see how excited they all were. They were high-fiving. They thought they just pulled off the steal of the draft. Everyone shook. It was so weird, so confusing. But I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs does remind me a lot of Mr. Alvin Kamara. And if he can play in that role, I mean, Alvin Kamara was ultra productive with Mark Ingram, getting all the handoffs, and Alvin Kamara, when he was in a committee was so productive, and was still I think they're both like top 10 running backs, like that first year where Kamara broke out. It was a cool season. So I'm kind of hoping that you're kind of crossing your fingers that Gibbs does something like that when you draft him. But we'll see. I think 14 is definitely a safe floor because they just have to give him touches. And I think it's just going to be, if you're playing in if you're not in a PPR league, he shouldn't be this high. But most people play PPR, and if you're PPR league, this is a good spot for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, and just buyer beware because he is being drafted as the running back 12 right now. So he might be not available here. So you might have to draft him a little bit earlier if you think his upside is league winning. But let's hear your number 14, Shane.
My 14 guy, we've talked about him a lot already, but I have Kenneth Walker at 14. Not much else to say than what we've already mentioned. But I mean, with how good of a rookie season he had, the Zach Charbonnet stuff sucks, but we don't know how much they're gonna use him. It could be like an Isaiah Spiller type thing where they drafted a good running back, everyone thought a good running back prospect, and then he's not used. Kenneth Walker last year, 9 touchdowns, a little over 1,000 rushing yards, and he had no fumbles. That's awesome to see out of your fantasy running back. So I still love Kenneth Walker. It's obviously, like we mentioned, just Zach Charbonnet. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't know.
I'll gloss over my number 13 running back, and that's Breece Hall. We've talked about him a lot, but I am a little bit lower on him, I guess. But I mean, I like Breece Hall as a dynamic running back. It just, coming off the injury, it's always scary. It's just the same injury as J.K. Dobbins last year. And where he's being drafted in the top 10 of running backs. And compared to Javonte Williams in the back end of the 20s, it's a big difference, in similar situations. I love Breece Hall, the player, though. He was so fun last year. He broke an 80-yard run every game, it seemed like, Breece Hall is a fun player.
Stores, I'm gonna skip you, Danny. You can go ahead and put Brees Hall at my number 13. I also have Brees Hall.
Wow. I guess I'm higher on Brees Hall. I love Brees Hall this year. I think he's going to be.
I love him too. It's just like it's so hard to put him much higher with what happened last year, what he's coming into the season with.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crowded offense for sure. I mean, last year they couldn't throw the ball at all, so I mean, they solely relied on Brees Hall, to be their guy, and so he was so ultra productive, and so that's the thing that scares me out. They have a competent quarterback, so that's the one part that scares me. And there's a lot of good weapons, with Garrett Wilson and gosh, they got the. I'm pulling a Shane from last
Mecole Hardman, Corey Davis,
Dude,
Allen Lazard.
When you think of the Jets, you're like, they have so many people, but who's on their team?
Yeah, that's how I felt freaking in the last episode. I forgot what the Jets were.
It's kind of
Yeah, I think
thing.
Izzy
For the Jets.
Abanikanda, people aren't really talking about that. I think Izzy Abanikanda is going to play a decent amount. And last year they gave Bam Knight a lot of carries. Like they've got a lot of running backs in there. They just re-signed like Ty Johnson. Like they've got
no, never mind.
a
Sorry.
lot of running backs. And I don't know, man. I think Izzy Abanikanda has got a different skill set than Michael Carter and Brees Hall. And I don't know. I just think they might not feed Brees Hall as much as they did last year and rely on him.
He was just so good. And I mean, you're at that Broncos game where he just was the only one who didn't. I mean, they couldn't fucking throw. Sorry, was that word. They couldn't throw the ball, and they knew the run was coming. And Brees Hall still broke like an 80-yard touchdown. Sorry, kids. Excuse my foul language.
Let's hear your number 13, Josh.
My number 13 though is going to be Mr. Miles Sanders.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got him high. I'm excited for him. He had, like I said earlier, he had the most quiet 1,300 yards rushing. I mean, the dude was ultra productive in an offense where Jalen Hurts was running the ball a lot, and they kind of even had a little bit of a committee. That's kind of how the Eagles were. And so I think he's going to come into this offense. He's going to be the focal point of this offense. And, they made guys like Devontae Foreman, like Shane said, and Chuba Hubbard work, and they were good. Shane, you had Devontae Foreman last year, but I mean, yeah. And he was good. And so, I mean, Miles Sanders, 1,269 yards rushing, 11 touchdowns. And then he also is a threat in the receiving game. So, I mean, I like him. I don't think he can. I honestly just think he can be dudes that if he repeats what he did last year, and I think he's going to have the opportunity to. I love this spot for him.
He's going to be a fun player. I like that you have him at the high because he can be a really big payoff for where he's being drafted right now with his potential in that offense. But my number 12 running back is someone that I just naturally am always lower on. I don't love him. He really honestly disappointed me last year, and that's Travis Etienne, the Jaguars running back. I just fear he'll never be like a full workhorse running back in that offense, and I need him to be more consistent. Like last year, he was really, really inconsistent. Like looking back at his stats, I was honestly surprised. Like it was a rough ride if you had Etienne as a running back.
Good, yeah.
It was weird last year with the Jags backfield. I mean, I had James Robinson. I drafted him, so I had him for those first 3 weeks, and it was looking like it was James Robinson's backfield for the season. And then after week 3, it started the shifts, and then Travis Etienne looked good, and then Travis Etienne sucked. It was weird. It was definitely a weird year.
He had weird hands too. He dropped
a big step up.
Yeah.
I need to see him take a big step up because last year he was just terrible, and they brought in Tank Bigsby, and that's a little scary to me because he's a beast and he's impressing in camp, and all the Jags writers are talking about Tank Bigsby. So I'm a little scared of Etienne.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm completely scared of him. I actually just put him as my honorable mention. He was my 21 ranked running back, to be honest with you.
Okay, that's
it's low. It's low. It's just an opinion. I just don't want him on my team. I think he's a great running back. I mean, what he did at Clemson, if he would have come out like a year earlier, he probably would have. I don't know. I don't know. He should have come out a year earlier. He had the wasted year with like the COVID stuff at Clemson. But he was just weird. He was weird last year. I didn't love him. He was really good some games, and he was horrible some games. I mean, and he left a lot of points off the board. I mean, there were some bad drops. I mean, he had some drops issues for a receiver. There was like 3. I remember there's like 3 different games he was wide open and just dropped the ball where it had an easy touchdown. And I like Tank Bigsby, I'll be honest. He was a stud at Auburn. I think he's going to be their goal line dude. He's a big running back, and so I don't know. He freaks me out. I'm low on him. He's definitely. I do agree with you guys. Like he could be as high as probably 10. But I
Because
don't know. I'm scared of
of
him.
PPR, because of PPR, I will be talking about Travis Etienne in our next running back episode.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Hey,
All right. We're all over the board with him. So
we are all over the place with Travis Etienne.
all right, you
Yeah,
guys.
I like that you're lower on him though, Stores, because I agree. I really just don't love him, and I'm not going to draft him this year. I'm simply not going to be drafting him where he's getting drafted. And like I said, I need him to take a big step up forward. I need him to take a big step up for me to take him next year. Like if he's good this year, I'll take him next year, but I'm not taking him this year.
Yeah.
Let's hear your number 12.
I'll get into my number 12, and that is Mr. Jonathan Taylor.
Whoa.
So
you mean number 2, right? You mean number 2? Is there a 1 in front of that or what?
Yeah, you.
I'll be
good?
honest. I got burned bad. And Jonathan Taylor sucked last year. I'll say it. He was horrible. And Jonathan Taylor scares me because this dude is a guy that was like a 4-year starter in college, and he was one of the best college running backs ever. But he has had so many touches. They're adding Anthony Richardson, which could vulture a lot of his touchdowns. He was a terrible receiver last year. They did not throw the ball at him, and he was not very productive when they did. The year before, he was absolutely amazing. He was the best running back in the NFL. But I mean, the drop off, and yeah, he did have an injury. He was dealing with an injury, but I know people have Jonathan Taylor as high as 1. They're RB1. But I'll be honest with you, and we have a buddy that if he watches this, he's gonna wanna
murder you.
He's gonna have some choice words with me.
He's gonna murder you.
Jonathan Taylor, so surprisingly last year, for the listeners, I had the 3rd overall pick, and Jonathan Taylor fell to me at 3, and I was skipping around the room. I couldn't believe it. And he, and little did I know what was going to happen. He had a great week 1, and then he was horrible, injured, and just awful. And, when he touched the ball, he wasn't good. And they did improve their offensive line, but they added a running quarterback. And he's not much of a PPR guy to me. I feel like you have to rely on Jonathan Taylor getting 25 rushes and hopefully getting rushes within the goal line area, because that's where he's productive, is around the red zone. And it just wasn't there last year. He's gotten so many touches. He scares me with injury because he's been all over the board. I mean, he's gotten since high school. The dude's been touching the ball 300 plus times a game. So there's mileage on him as a younger running back. So call me crazy, but he's my 12. There's guys I'd rather have over him.
That's crazy low for me. I understand it, but that is crazy low for me.
It's
I think AR will help him and not help him at the same time, because AR will vulture some touchdowns and yards, but he's gonna make the offense better at the same time. So he'll give JT more opportunities. But me and Shane will talk more about JT next episode too. So
I think he's gonna be irrelevant in the pass game, to be honest with you. I do. He was not good last year.
I don't think
old quarterbacks that could screen the ball to him. Matt Ryan, guys that they should be dumping off the ball to him because they know how to read an offense or read a defense. Excuse me. And
I don't think he needs to be necessarily relevant in the passing game to be good. I think
he's got to have 25 touches and at least. I mean, if you guys looked at his stats last year, and there was obviously everyone was talking. There's going to be a drop off, obviously, from his, almost MVP season 2 years ago. But the dude was getting 50% of the red zone touches. It was unreal. So if you expect him to do that, I can't buy in on it. And that's why I'm so low on him.
All right, let's get into your number 12, Shane.
My 12, I have Ramondre Stevenson at 12. We already talked about him, but yeah, the Patriots are weird. But they have probably the most immobile quarterback in history in Mac Jones. So no worries there. And he'll rely on Ramondre. They brought in James Robinson, which basically wasn't even worth mentioning. So yeah, I like Ramondre. He proved himself last year. He's due for a big season, I feel like.
I love Ramondre, and spoiler alert, I'll be talking about him next episode. And my number 11 running back is Najee Harris. He's being drafted in round 4 right now, which is just absolutely absurd. Do not let him fall farther than that. He got drafted in round 1 last year. I was one of the silly people that got burned by doing so. And I think he probably could be closer to being a first round pick this year than he was last year, and probably should have been a fourth round pick last year.
Yeah.
I just like his situation this year. He ended the season strong. Pickett gained some momentum. He's going to be a better quarterback this year. They're going to be a better offense this year. The future outlook is bright because they invested in that offensive line. And I just think the culture in that Steelers organization right now is pretty positive, and I like the vibes. And where Najee's being drafted right now, it's just a no-brainer. You can't let him fall
It's a
past
steal.
round 4. He's a steal. He hasn't missed a football game since 2017. I mean, at Alabama, like he's just a freak. He's a freak of nature, and he really has the potential to be a league winner at where he's being drafted, just because the Steelers didn't even bring in any running backs. So I love Najee Harris this year.
Yeah, sneak peek, Dan. I'll be talking about him in our next episode. I absolutely love him. I love Najee Harris this year. Give me all of his stock, especially where he's being drafted. I think he's going to be a steal of the draft. People are hating on him last year. I think he can only go up. And yeah, he did have a strong end campaign, and you love the building off of that momentum. And all the Steelers did was improve their offensive line and get better. I mean, and a very, very slept on guy that's going to help Najee a lot is Mr. Darnell Washington at tight end. Tight end blocking is a huge part of running back success. And, he's going to be one of the better guys. So, and you add, Broderick Jones, right tackle, lined up Darnell Washington. They already got that chemistry. And I love the Steelers running to the right side of that line. And they're a better team when they get the ball in Najee's hands. So, and I think he's a sneaky guy to catch a lot of passes next year. So I love him in PPR format. So, give me Najee Harris, especially where he's being drafted. I think he's a league winner, and I think he's in for a big bounce back season.
Totally.
All right, let's get your number 11.
So my number 11 is going to be Mr. Joseph Mixon. So, we already kind of talked about him. I feel like as long as there's nothing, I mean, this is all bearing legal issues and everything, but as long as and it looks like he probably will be fine. We haven't really heard too much more about it. And as long as they don't add any running backs, but where he stands right now as a clear RB1 in a backfield with Chase Brown as your RB2, Joe Mixon's going to touch the ball 20 plus times a game. He's going to get your PPR receptions, and, he's got a good chance of scoring almost every game. And, the Bengals run a very friendly running back offense, Joe Burrow can get the ball out to him on screens. They're going to hand the ball off to him a lot. He's going to get all the goal line touches. So I like Joe Mixon as long as he's not in trouble or anything.
All right. And Shane?
My 11 is also Najee Harris.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Najee this year. Even though last year felt like a down season, he still had north of 1,000 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, and 3 receiving touchdowns. He was dealing with the foot stuff, at least the first half of the year, and he still played through it. And week 10 and on last year, he was running back 5. I don't think people realize that. He had a sneaky, weird, good year. Even though
I traded for him. He was, dude, I had him in my flex. I traded nothing for him. He was just like an extra piece because he was so bad. And oh man, I loved it. I loved it. He helped me get me to the championship in my flex spot. He was like 15 points a game in PPR. It was awesome, like consistently for like the last 5 games. So yeah, Najee Harris, stud.
Yeah, and he's got a great floor too. Like you said, last year, even though it was a down year, he was still getting 10 points a game. Like his floor was 9, and that was like bad. That was like a rough week, So he's gonna improve this year. So I mean, what's the worst that can happen? 10 points every week. I'll take that. And obviously he's gonna do better than that. So I'm excited for Najee.
As someone's RB2 too. I mean, it seems like that's where he's gonna be drafted, is you're gonna have him as your RB2, and that's gonna be so nice to have.
Yeah, some of the best value of any running back. So yeah, that was really fun. It went a little long, but that was fun. A lot of different rankings, and we covered them all pretty well, I think. So that was fun. Make sure to tune into our episode Monday. It'll be the top 10 running backs. So you'll be able to see all of our top 10 running backs, and that'll probably be really relevant for the first 2 rounds of your guys' fantasy drafts this year. So thank you guys for coming on, and hope you guys had fun. How was it?
This is a fun episode. I absolutely love it. Fantasy football is my favorite thing. And, I like getting into the later round running backs and stuff because it's just a blast. It's awesome. And, You guys, some people might have some choice words for me. I'm a little bold on a couple players, but it's all in the gut, baby. It's all in the gut. Listen to me. You'll win you'll win your fantasy league. Don't listen to these two guys.
I feel like, I mean, this was a lot of fun. I wish we started at 30 and worked our way down.
Yeah.
There's so many running backs to talk about, and don't even get me started with the wide receivers. Yeah.
So many running backs we could have talked about in this range. And like I said at the top of the show, I mean, these running backs are great value, and they're going to be some league winners. And I think waiting on running back isn't a bad idea in the first round or two. Maybe just drafting one running back in the first 2 rounds. Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the NFL Secrets podcast, and catch us next week. Peace.
Yes, sir. Peace.